Hello there, and welcome back to the Real Talks podcast. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Kerins, who back in 2001 had the rare experience of playing in both the All-Ireland football and hurling finals within a matter of weeks for Galway. Throughout the noughties, there was plenty of hype surrounding his dual career, but since then, Alan has pursued another passion and raised millions of euros that has saved and changed thousands of lives in Africa. We spoke about how playing sport at such a high level helped him to develop the skills and self-confidence to take on such massive projects, and how staring death in the face while in Africa changed his perspective on both sport and life. Before we start, a quick reminder for you to please share this podcast into your WhatsApp groups or online, on Twitter and Facebook, or send them to friends through email or whatever. Your support is invaluable to us in spreading the word and helping to celebrate these GA heroes. My name is Alan O'Mara, and this is episode 13 of the Real Talks podcast with Galway's Alan Kerins.
It's back down with Alan Kerins, taking on Ben O'Connor. Good return by Galway. Alan Kerins, a third point for him.
I suppose start off just to thank you for your time, for taking the time out and for agreeing to do this. I know you're a busy man and it's been a busy week for all Galway people. I suppose over the last couple of weeks I've had Oisin McConville and Mick Fenley on, so two different people, different stories, and it's really just around capturing those different personalities and different passions I suppose the players for the game from our games have. I was going to start obviously just on a light-hearted note and just ease into this by just chatting about what the last couple of days have been like in Galway. Obviously it's a huge day for the county. As I was driving in there today, just there was flags up everywhere. Just got that real sense of, I don't know, it's just sort of joy and emotion around the place. Even just seeing people, overhearing people talking, and I suppose from your own perspective, what's that been like?
It's relief. 29 years has been too long. I think we needed to win this one after losing the last 6 we've been in. And there's nothing worse coming home after losing at Ireland. I've lost 2 hurling finals, lucky enough to win 1 football. And, you know, it was 2001, we hit the homecoming. I was just reminiscing where that was 16 years ago. Unfortunately, we lost the hurling that year as well, but we won the football. And it's just great for the lads. And Micheál being from my club, the manager, he helped us achieve our greatest day as a club as well in 2011. So he's an unbelievable record now. He's been the only hurling manager, I think, to win a club and a senior All-Ireland.
Yeah. Along
with Joe Kernan and I think one other in terms of in the football side.
Like from the general supporters' perspective, I suppose everyone understands that elation and that joy, and people who've been trucking around the games. But one of the things I was thinking about on the way down is there a bit of a conflict in emotion in some way from a past player, maybe having been so close and chipping away at it? And you know you've been there and you've been close and you felt the pain, you felt some joy. Does that stir up a little bit more emotion in you watching, say, the team last weekend get over the line? Does it stir a little bit more up?
I found, I suppose, it was very emotional. I was overjoyed for the players, but
for sure.
You would look back with a tinge of regret, saying, "What if we should have done it before that? We didn't do this, we didn't do that, we didn't step up to the plate, or didn't accept. We accepted mediocrity in some situations. That didn't, make a stand." But no, it's the main emotion would be just joy for the players. That they have actually done it now, and they deserve it because they've worked so hard and they've lost 2 finals and they've gone through the pain of losing, and they deserve it. They're just an amazing team now, and Micheál is an amazing manager and a good friend of mine, and the work they've put in, it's just brilliant for them. It's their time. Unfortunately, I spent 15 years trying to get it, and it didn't work, and that's just, we just have to accept that. You do look back with regret. You would have loved one because that was your dream.
Yeah, that's only a natural
That's a natural human instinct. But no, it was very emotional, and I had a tear at the end of it, seeing the lads do it. And just for the people of Galway, what it means to people. You just see it, what it means to the parents and the supporters and just a general, ordinary GA supporter, and the villages and the communities. It was just amazing to see that joy and that, I suppose, release of raw emotion and raw happy emotion. I don't think I could have faced going back again, having lost another one across the Shannon, and the post-mortems and the daggers out and the negativity and this and Galway. And we did the minors as well, so it was an amazing day.
You mentioned already the personal perspective of yourself having lost 2 hurling finals. Does that, I suppose, do those days, are they something that you've put away now but just that came back to you over the last couple of days, if that makes sense? Were you thinking about them a little bit more?
I remember I was talking to a former player, actually John Connolly, and we were just chatting about what a great day it was, and we were just saying there's nothing worse in the world than being, well, there's a lot worse, but for a player, nothing worse than the Monday morning after losing a final. You wake up, you had a few drinks, the worst way, and then the realisation comes back to get lost the hurling final.
What is that like in that moment? Do you remember it?
I remember 2005, and I was just looking up at the ceiling in City West and the room spinning. And I said, oh gee, I was making up plans to become a professional golfer, making up plans to do all this, to go just anything but hurling, and
it just didn't involve
to
that
achieve
pain you were
something
feeling.
again, because we hadn't achieved what we wanted to achieve, the ultimate goal, and anything just to distract myself from the pain of the loss the previous day, and you do put it away and you do come to terms with it. But you invest so much into it, you see, when you don't reach that step. But you eventually, I suppose, Africa then taught me, a sense of perspective when I came back from Africa, that it was more about enjoyment and participation and the friends you make and the skills and the profile and the positive things you can do outside of the game is far more important. And the friends and the communities you have when you leave the game is far more important than any accolade you ever win. But you still have to have that medal.
Absolutely. I suppose going back to 2001, it was obviously, must have been quite a unique time for yourself, being involved in both panels and 2 All-Ireland finals. And I suppose to go from the depths of, say what you talked about there, waking up on that Monday morning, looking at the ceiling thinking, Jesus, what am I at? Why am I putting myself through this? To actually experiencing the opposite of that a couple of weeks later, that must have been a very unusual mixture within a pretty short time window, was it?
Oh, it was, yeah, it was. And I suppose it was such distraction that year, because I never expected to be on the football panel that year, because I only took up football when I was 23 in Trinity College. The hurling wasn't that strong and the football was a lot stronger, so I took it up to keep fit during the winter, a year or two previous to 2001.
So in terms of club growing up, you would never played football? Your school?
No, soccer and golf would have been my second and third sports. I played Oscar trainer level for Galway, for Galway Town here, and I was asked into Galway United, but I just didn't have the time to go. Why
was that actually? Because most people just associate that if you're from a dual club and you play one, you sort of end up playing the other. How come it happened in that way? Was it just as a game, did it not just appeal to you when you were younger? Or?
No, I'm from Clarenbridge, and there's no hurling, there's no football there. So Galway is an unusual county that is half the county plays hurling and half plays football. Very few dual clubs. So I'm South Galway, and East Galway is all hurling, West Galway and North Galway is all football, divided by the railway line. There's no real transition. So there was no club, and there was no clubs in the area playing it when I was growing up. And back in the 80s and 90s, when I was a young guy, there was no other real sports.
Sure.
But my dad played a bit of golf, so I got into that quite a lot. And as I said, I played soccer, and football would have been my fourth sport or fifth sport. I played a lot of squash as well. But so I joined Salthill in 2000, in the summer of 2000, after we got beaten by Kilkenny in the 2000 semi-final. And I just played a couple of intermediate. They were out of the championship at this stage, and I just played a couple of intermediate championship games. And I was playing Sigerson that year. And after the league final in 2001, Galway played Mayo. I got approached to join the panel. And to come and play a league match that they were going to watch me play a league game. And then after the league game, I was asked, that was on a Friday night, there was a Maybank holiday weekend, I was asked to come down to play Westmeath in a challenge game.
Right.
And I'll never forget, I was mortified walking into the dressing room because everyone was looking at me, because they knew me from the hurling for I had my debut in 97 with the hurlers. And so where's this guy going? Because nobody really well played football. So I was doing my finals in physiotherapy in Trinity at the time, and John O'Mahony asked me to stay down from Dublin and train Tuesday, Thursday, play a trial game Saturday, and he let me know where I stood.
Right, okay.
So we played Tuesday, Thursday, with a trial game Saturday, I think with a training session Sunday, and then I was named on the championship team to play Leitrim on the Tuesday night. So it was a whirlwind. It just came out. It was just total whirlwind. And I took John Donlan's place, and that caused a little bit of controversy. I left the panel, and because I just, it was a boat of the blue throwing me in, and they didn't play in the Leitrim game, so there was a whole media furore around that. And I'll never forget it, but I was very nervous playing that first Connacht Championship match, because I hadn't even played Club Championship at this stage. So I played Connacht Championship before I played Club Championship. And I did okay. I kicked 3 points, I think, that day, or 2 maybe. And then that was at 2 o'clock in... and I felt people came down just to see me fail, maybe to have a gawk and to see what happened. You could have a look and say, why is this hurler playing football? And there would be quite a division between hurling and football in Galway. But I got through it, and I played. That match was at 2 o'clock in Tuam, and then I had to go to Athenry to play a club hurling championship at 6.
Right.
And then I had to get up at 5 o'clock that morning to get a train to Dublin to start my finals. So it was a pretty hectic 2 or 3 weeks. We then, and you know, the hurlers didn't even realise I was going in at this stage, or the hurling management, and it was a bit of shock to them as well that I'd gone in. And so that was a challenge to try and deal with that.
For sure.
And then we were beaten by Roscommon, and we went down to win the All Ireland. So that was a quick. So if you told me, even when I was watching the league final, when Mayo beat them in the league final 2001, if you told me I would win All Ireland with Galway football, I'd have told you you're on.
What's your sense of perspective on that now, looking back? Because it must, like, even just you telling me that story there, it must have just been a crazy little whirlwind of a journey, like.
I just got, and you know, we got to the hurling final as well, and then Clarenbridge, we won our first ever hurling championship. Yeah. In September, and that October. So it just never got a chance to stop and catch your breath. It was an amazing few months. The only thing, we were very close to winning the hurling, and we should have won it.
Sure.
A few refereeing decisions went against us, a few terrible decisions. We had a goal disallowed that I don't think should have been. I had 2 points over the bar that were signalled wide. With Hawkeye, you know, just small things. And you know, Joe Rabbit got very harshly treated that day, won no free. And we probably could have won that and should have won that final, and it's a big regret. And then I suppose because I played every game in the football up until the final, and then maybe because of the hurling, and I got dropped in for the football final. But I came on in the end. But you know, I suppose hurling was my number one game. Yeah, I'd only started to play football, so there wasn't as much emotion attached to it, I suppose, if I'm being honest. Because hurling, as I was dreaming about, it was Joe Cooney. I was my heroes. I was never even football, and I was never on my radar growing up. So I suppose while I'm very honoured and very privileged, and it's over the moon to have the football medal, I would have, you know, the hurling medal would have been the one that I've been chasing since a young boy. Yeah, it makes complete sense to say that hurling was and is the first love in terms of sport. I suppose for someone who'd already broken into the hurling panel and was there and was obviously had become a key part of that setup, where did the motivation or the come from within you to go and say, take on John O'Mahony's challenge there, to say, right, okay, I'm going to do the Tuesday, Thursday trial game of the weekend, when you're already embedded within a team that was absolutely close and knocking on the door? I suppose I'm just a little bit curious of what came from within you to say, actually, I'm going to try and do that as well. Do you get me? Yeah, I don't know. I think I always admired, I suppose, multiple core athletes, Michael Jordan, or he was a hero of mine. I'd always admired those type of people who could play a lot of sports to a certain level, and maybe that triggered it in me. Also, Galway, I remember after winning the '98 All Ireland final, and they lost the 2000 to Kerry. So they were a team of massive stars: Michael Donlan, Pádraig Joyce, Kevin Walsh, Tomás Mannion, the Meehans, Sean Dupuy. What a team of leaders! Incredible, you know, Jeff Fallon. So what an opportunity to play with those guys. For sure. You know, and I was in the stand watching them in '98, and you know, celebrated like this week, celebrated hugely with them and with Galway when they won the All Ireland. So they were heroes as well, even though I was colleagues with them at the time. So what an opportunity to. And they lost the final the year before. You know, so what an opportunity to just even test yourself and challenge yourself, see could you do it. Yeah. Because so I just took it on. I suppose blindly. Yeah. No, the reason I asked is I took a quote out of the Irish Times from 2001. I suppose you touched upon it there on multi-code sportsmen and people that can sort of challenge themselves and perform obviously in different pressurised environments. And like from my perspective, you're certainly one of the last that I remember have been at the top level in both.
And I think as time has gone on, the notion of being able to do both in our games has become less and less, and it's almost probably extinct at this stage. But I just thought it was funny because this is back like 16 years ago in the paper, and it says, although it's a little early to start talking about a football here in Dublin and Galway, the fact that dual intercounty players are now less conspicuous than ever has already created notable hype around Alan Kerins. And I suppose there was hype there. Was that difficult to channel with Neil? Obviously there was the other issues going on with inside and outside the panel, but just from your individual perspective, was that hype something you embraced and enjoyed, or was it did you feel like it became a distraction in any way?
If I'm honest, I suppose looking back on it, I probably got a little bit carried away, especially around the hurling final, because I just go back and compare my preparation to the hurling final and into the football and to the hurling in 2001, and the hurling in 2005, and maybe if I'm honest, maybe I did get a small bit distracted and carried away in the sideshow that was the double and creating history. But I did embrace. You have to enjoy it when you're there.
Absolutely.
It's only once in a lifetime opportunity, so you have to try and enjoy it. I was focused on enjoying it. But I suppose going into 2005 final, I said no, I'm going to go really under the radar here. Just focus on my performance. I remember even in the media day, I just ran the opposite side in 2005, and just started practicing putting balls over the bar on my own, away from everybody. And in 2001, I would have been at the centre of it, I suppose. Maybe my inexperience, but also I suppose it was the story that year. So I kept it, and I suppose I was just back from Africa in 2005, and I had a huge, total life-changing experience there, and I decided I was going to enjoy the day a lot more in 2005, and I put pressure on myself, and that's where I wanted to be. And I'd learned a lot from the Africans. They smile through their troubles. They're constantly smiling and singing and dancing and expressing themselves. And I suppose I had 3 months there, and I learned, and I'd see people starving and with HIV, but they're still singing and
At what
dancing.
stage of the year 2005 were those 3 months? Was that the
January,
beginning?
February, March.
January, February, March.
And I'd met and I used to be a big admirer of Haile Gebrselassie, and if you ever noticed him when he was doing his marathon, he used to smile through it. And I started applying that to the hard training when I came back, enjoying it and smiling through it. Because any player, when you ask them, when they look back at their top performances, they were enjoying it. They were in a flow. They were just not instinctive. So I made a distinct decision that year of trying to enjoy it, and especially the final. And I remember Conor Hayes gave a great speech in the leading up to the Tuesday or the Thursday night before the final, and it put goosebumps in the back of my goosebumps all over me. And he said, Croke Park rocks and all that. Finally, it reverberates. It just rocks and it shakes. Use that energy. Use it. And I remember walking around the crowd and saying, use and let the energy, energize.
Yeah.
And I did, and I scored 3 or 4 points that day. I think at one of my better games for Galway. But so I learned a lot from the 2000. So getting back to the long-winded way of saying, I probably did get a little bit caught up in the sideshow. That was the double that year, and I suppose looking back as well, it was a challenge handling both squads and handling both managers emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there were pressure on you to be here, there, and everywhere, and then you felt maybe there was and wasn't there, but maybe you did feel resentment because you were getting a lot of attention and a lot of media. And you were only there half the time, and you were taking some guys' places in both sides. And maybe I was a hurler that never played football, taking a spot in the football. So you kind of were feeling a little bit of, I don't know, maybe it was only me, but and that's why they didn't have the confidence or the ruthlessness to say, fuck you, or I'm going for it. I'm kind of people pleaser by nature. So I probably tried to please everybody too much that year instead of being ruthless enough to say, no, I need to do this for my preparation, and probably ended up costing me my performance. Probably suffered a bit, definitely.
You mentioned specifically the experience in Africa for those 3 months. I think the word you used was life changing, and it's obviously something that does become a huge passion for you afterwards. But I suppose taking it back to the very beginning, thinking, first of all, what made you want to go out there for those couple of months? And I suppose explain in some way how you felt it did change it and have that strong impact that allowed you, even say on the day-to-day level of coming back and feeling a bit of a freer hurler or a bit more at ease or a bit more relaxed, but focusing in on, I suppose, the trip itself. What was it about it that had that impact on you?
The trip itself?
Yeah.
I suppose I went there in January 2005, and I suppose the first day I landed in where I was based, in a home for I was a physiotherapist by profession. I was working in the hospitals in Merlin, in Galway, and I was going over to work with an Irish nun in a home for disabled children in the middle of nowhere in Mangu, in western Zambia, a very poor province on the edge of the Kalahari Desert. And the first night, I suppose, Sister Kathy got a call from one of her workers in the home that a relative, a sister or a brother, was sick and she needed care. So we drove down to the little mud hut in the bush, and this person was at in-stage HIV/AIDS, covered in sores, and had to be propped up by somebody, to sit up. So we come back the following day to bring her to the hospital. For some reason, they couldn't go at that time, and when we came back the following day, the person had died. So that's pretty harrowing for your first 24 hours. And then I suppose I saw the level of disability, and some of the kids had disabilities that we would have sorted here at birth.
Sure.
And to be some of them are playing sport now. You know what I mean? Like clubfoot, or it's called talipes equinovarus. And some of them were, had no parents. Some of them had, where we just felt so helpless in terms of, how compared to where I came from, and the opportunities I had. And then I suppose when I landed, I raised 10 grand before I went for developing the physiotherapy unit. That was my kind of task going out. But when I landed, there was a drought there, and Sister Kathy was trying to feed 800 families. So one of the first few days as well, we had to go out and deliver 800 bags of food to 800 families, knowing that they would have one meal, it's one 25 kg bag of maize per family, and that would have to do maybe a family of 10 for a month, and they would have to maybe survive on this for a meal every second day, and maybe go the last week hungry. And people come up queuing at her door, tipping their bellies, going hungry, hungry, hungry. That's something I never seen. Never even thought about. Never even thought about her. Even the people had no water. They were walking. Kids couldn't go to school because they were walking 10k for water.
Right.
So that was pretty challenging. So all that, and people say, how did it affect you? But when you watch that on television, you can turn it off.
Yeah.
And you can turn on the Champions League, or you can turn on the All Ireland, or you can turn on whatever.
Yeah. And you're only seeing it on TV.
You're only seeing it. It doesn't register.
There's no connection.
There's no smells. There's no emotion. There's no real life people. But I was living amongst it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 months, and that does impact on you, and it does give you a huge life-changing perspective. Changes perspective on everything. And plus, I was thinking, geez, these kids have the same dreams I have, to become school teachers, doctors, nurses, but by pure fluke or chance of where you're born, they have no chance of doing that. And I could go, and that's one of the big changes when I went back. I said, well, I'm going to try and fulfill my potential as a sports person, or as a human being, far more when I go back, because I'm lucky enough to, home is home, but I have the opportunity at home. I won't say I'm lucky enough, but because home is home, and they don't know, you can't say you're unlucky to be born here or there, but I had the opportunity and the structures around me to fulfill my potential and whatever I wanted to do. And these kids I was working with, our individuals, our communities, didn't, by terms of infrastructure, finance, climate. And I suppose that was one of the big lessons.
What age are you at that time?
27.
Like it's an incredibly strong and powerful life lesson. I know in terms of lads back at home playing here, or playing professional soccer, or playing sports, one of the things that's obviously discussed all the time is the athletic identity and how it consumes. And we talked through there about what it was like in 2001 playing in boat codes and a little bit of hype around you, and you're probably in this little insulated bubble. I suppose, but at 27, someone through whatever way, shape or form, that bubble's probably popped a little bit for you. And do you feel as if that was a bit of an awakening in yourself?
It was, I suppose. It was, because I suppose I came back, and then I decided to raise 5,000 euros. I wanted to help, and I wanted to make a difference. I suppose I would never, even though as a physiotherapist, you are making differences in people's lives in hospital, and in terms of getting them back on their feet, or back to sport, or back to injury. But in terms of real troubles, I wanted to help. Now, with no intention to set up a charity.
Okay.
No intention at all. I just said to Sister Kathy when I was leaving, I was very emotional leaving because I got to know the kids quite well. And I said, where are they going to end up, or what's going to happen to them? And like at any given time, she'd have 75 kids in her home. I remember the last day, I was in bits leaving, and I said to Kathy, how can I help? Or to stay in touch or stay involved. And she said, Alan, I just love €5,000 to sink a well for both, so we'll have clean drinking water. And the clean drinking water will, first of all, will reduce illness because I can test it. And once I get one, I'll get more, I know it. Two, we can get them to irrigate the land and teach them how to farm themselves. So I can't keep feeding them. We can't afford this. It's not sustainable. And three, the kids can go to school because they don't have to walk a kilometre now for water rather than 10. So I said, okay. By pure fluke, Damien Eagers was visiting Zambia. His uncle lived across the way. Damien was a photographer for Sports File.
Okay.
And Damien came for 2 weeks to visit his uncle, who was a Capuchin priest or friar. And he knew I was there, and he was on a couple of All-Star trips with me overseas. And he was on we went to Rome to play the Rebbe Cup hurling final, I think, in 2004, and he was on it. So I knew him, and he said he got in touch. Would you mind if I come over and take you photos, Alan? Because I had no camera back then. There was no iPhone. The only camera I had was the yellow Kodak, just disposable one.
Rolling it up.
Yeah, exactly. Rewind or wind up. But he came over and he took the most amazing photographs. I wasn't aware of them.
Right.
Of just working with the kids or giving out the food or trying to stop the block.
Just in a very natural way. It wasn't a staged photograph.
And only for them probably wouldn't have had the same impact. So when I came back, I said, I'd go to all the businesses in Galway. Back then it was 2005. It was still a boom. Yeah. Builders were flahulic with the cash, and the economy was in a great state. So I decided to raise $5,000, and I got Damien's photos, put them into a brochure, information on what the home did and the project we're trying to set up. And we got the Ireland final that year then as well. So Darren Frehel did a piece. He was working on TV3 at the time. Yeah. He saw the photos and he was fascinated by them. And he did the documentary in that. And then TV3 commissioned the documentary in 2006. So it just happened to snowball. So $5,000 became $50,000. Next thing became $100,000. The next thing I said, oh, gee, I better put some governance around this because this is getting out of hand. Yeah. To leave yourself open. So we formed a board of directors and we've decided to form a charity to handle the money. And I did that voluntarily then from 2008, and it just snowballed. And then I was at it full time. Somebody sponsored me to go at it full time in 2008 or 2009, and I've been at that ever since. Even during the recession, I was hard going, but it was very rewarding. And we've raised $5 million since in terms of public fundraising, and then indirectly we've got many more million directed invested directly into programs from various institutions directly to Gert South of Africa that I'm partnered with now, or straight to the presentation sisters in Zambia and the projects we work in Zambia. So again, it was organic, never intended to do it, but it became my life then.
It's an incredible journey, to go from coming home with that target of €5,000 to transform the way it did into quite a large operation. As you reflect on that now, do you think that was just something that you were meant to do, and you were in the right place at the right time and you found a calling or a passion? Do you think you just stumbled into it and went with, because it's a huge passion, and there must be a huge inner motivation within you to take that project on and to really scale that up and do that well. How do you feel when you're looking back on that journey?
Looking back on it now, when you look back and you say, I think it was meant to happen because, why did I go in the first place? I went through a bad relationship breakup in 2004 and struggled with that, and I helped a lady who was suffering from Down syndrome at the time, and we helped her to walk again, and her smile lifted me out of my own gloom. Okay. And then I said, I want to go to Africa. I had the opportunity now, no commitments. We were out of the championship, so I actually approached Goal, and they turned me down. in September 2004, and I wanted to go from September to Christmas
in that classic off-season period,
and come back for the pre-season.
Yeah.
Being hammered by Kilkenny, we'd lost the club comedy final with Salthill to Killerairn, and I said, "Oh, jeez, I need to get out of here." And people ask me, "Why did I go to Africa? Why didn't you stay in Ireland or do something socially in Ireland?" And when I look back now, I dig deep into the subconscious. What was the trigger? I was 7 in 1984 when Live Aid was on the television and Bob Geldof and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I hid behind. I used to watch the scenes on the news. It was emaciated babies and starving people, and I couldn't watch it. I had to hide behind the couch, and the news came on, fearful. And that year, my dad won the captain's prize in Gort Golf Club, and there was a sweepstakes.
Okay.
And he backed himself. Now I'm not sure it was 800 or 800 pounds he won, but it was a lot of money, and he won the captain's prize, and he won the money. And back in '84 it was a kind of a recession. He had 5 young kids, or I'm not sure how many young kids he had at the time, but 3 or 4 was anyway. And we didn't have a lot of money. And he gave every penny back to Live Aid. So that must have triggered something in me. That unassuming act. Little did he realise that simple act would result maybe 30 years later in his son raising millions for the same cause. So the ripple effect, I suppose, and I'm glad I can tell him that was probably that was probably that. So never underestimate the power of actions, be it both positive or negative on young people, and how it can be that trigger or ignition moment that they call it. I think Malcolm Gladwell would call it ignition moment. Yeah. So I think it was the combination of the emotion I've seen on television and then this real positive role model of mine doing this, giving this all out money away, must have triggered something in me on a subconscious level that resurrected in 2005.
What was it like to have that conversation with your dad down the line, tracing that back? And because obviously it was something he obviously just done in the moment and made a good decision to say, actually, do you know what? Is that something you discussed with him?
Yeah, when kind of we did discuss it, and I suppose he wouldn't be a man for showing great emotion, or he wouldn't accept many compliments. Yeah. But you could see deep down that he was delighted, and the fact that I acknowledged it publicly in a couple of talks as well when he was there was nice, and it's nice for him to know that he had a massive impact on me in terms of a positive impact, and he can take as much credit for this work than anybody else. So
I suppose from that moment, tracing it back, and that subconsciously that leads to a decision to go to Zambia. And I suppose there, and you reference it's Sister Kathy there, was it?
Yeah. That came about by chance as well.
So that's because you obviously land, and by all means you're a good-natured person. You're going out with a good heart, looking to make a difference. And to come across someone like that who's obviously able then to channel what you have and to channel the skill set and the energy and the goodwill you have to, I suppose, to transmit it out to as many people as possible in a way. What was it about her that inspired you in that time that you were there?
What was her? Look at this. She was a powerhouse. She was in her 60s, an Irish woman, dragging a community single-handedly. She was running a home for disabled children, 75 kids at any given time in her care, on no money. She'd feed 800 families. She was trying to build income-generating projects. She was trying to build houses. We built loads of houses for disabled people there as well. She was trying to get wells, trying to get people farming. She was just an entrepreneur. And there was just nothing that couldn't be done. She was just, nothing was impossible. And the effect that she was having on the community was powerful. And she wasn't like a nun that you would associate in Ireland. She was out there digging the trenches. She was building houses.
Just
she
doing
was
what had to be done.
And whatever it took. And she could be president of Ireland. She's that talented, and that driven and focused, and it was all selfless. Selfless. And to think about what it would have been like, she was after 30 years, to leave Ireland and come out there on your own, not knowing where you're going, and to face the community and live amongst the people. People say, "Oh, you're great, Alan," And I always say, look, they're the real heroes. They've sacrificed all their lives. I'm okay. I'm here out in a golf club or playing hurling football for Galway, or working with GPA and going to Croke Park and having me coffees and me pints and whatever. But they're out there in the middle of it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and delighted to be, and sacrificed all their own dreams to help others. So I suppose that's really what inspired me.
Yeah.
I also, nobody knew her story, or nobody knew other stories like her. And I thought it was my main aim to tell her story rather than about me.
I get you.
To tell her story so people could be inspired by her and help her to make a massive impact on so many vulnerable people.
Because I suppose leadership is a strand that has come up across loads of the different conversations across the podcast in the last, since we've been doing them this year, and it's a topic I'm fascinated by, and I read online by books, constantly trying to upskill and learn more. But so from what you're saying there and the way you've described that, what was it like to see leadership from Sister Kathy that was just so unfiltered, so probably clear, and I think you used the word selfless there. What was it like just to see that in the flesh and to see how leadership like that can actually be the glue that keeps something together? Yeah,
I think the main thing I think is so many people talk about leadership, but they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. And she was walking the walk.
She's walking it.
You know, she had a vision. She communicated the vision, and then she inspired us to follow her, and everyone else bought into that vision. And but she was living in it as well. You know, people know when you're spoofing, when you're not spoofing. As people know when you're a real leader, not a real leader. You just have that presence. You just have that action. You lead by example rather than by talking about it, and that's what she did.
In terms of the money that you've raised, because I know I think a lot of us, and some of myself gets guilty of it as well. You just how much was raised. Very good, fair play to you. But in terms of the impact that was able to have over there through, if it's the Alan Kerins project or through partnerships, is there any particular ones that stick out with you? That's something that a particular project that you're proud of, or something that sticks with you?
Yeah, there's a good few. You know, we have a. Do you believe that we have a sports centre there?
Right.
And we use sport and music as mediums to engage kids who are not in the formal education system. And then through sport and music, we teach leadership programs, health and sanitation, HIV education, numeracy and literacy.
But the sport is the hook that gets people in.
And the theatre.
Okay.
We partner with Bare Feet Dance Group as well, and you know they have a soccer club there at the moment called after us, and which is nice.
What's the soccer? Is it Alan Kerins Soccer Club?
Alan Stars. They call it, not me. But so that's a lovely thing to see, and they've won tournaments and they keep us updated, and they've under 17 and under 23 teams and a senior team.
It's the real legacy piece.
So
of
it's
work.
Brilliant, and we have a school there that we help fund. It started under 3 by another Irish nun, under 3, and now there's 1,900 kids there, and we've built several. We've built a school hall, a science and economics block, and three or four more big buildings with 3 classrooms in each.
Okay.
So now, and it's gone from a basic school to a secondary school since I've been
it's a
there.
hub in a way.
So it's 1,900 kids going to school that wouldn't be educated. And then the home for disabled children. Now we're building 2 big enterprises around it. So in 18 months, the home for disabled children will generate 150%. Will generate 150% of its own revenue.
Okay.
So we're in phase 4 of a 78-bedroom lodge.
Wow.
And a 90-seater restaurant in the lodge. That's already generating 80% of the running costs of the home for disabled children. When phase 4 is finished, you know, it'll be unbelievable. And we're building an industrial park where we have expanding our block making plant where we sell blocks. And there's big development going on in town of Mongo because the Chinese have managed to build a bridge across the Zambezi River, connecting us to Angola, which is a port on the west side of the continent. Previously, you know, the nearest port would be Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, or maybe down to South Africa.
A big impact on trade.
So it'll be a major transition town, but there's no building materials that sell quality building materials. So we're setting up that. But the big thing about those 2 enterprises are they're creating loads of jobs, and all the locals are getting the jobs. We believe in upskilling locals. They can then support their families. The profits then from these 2 commercial enterprises goes back into the Cheshire Home for Disabled Children and all its community projects. So they'll generate their own money there rather than us depending on Ireland for it or overseas.
My mind went back there as you were talking to you saying going around handing the 25 kilograms bags of maize. We're saying it's completely unsustainable to something like that.
And that's probably one of the biggest things I'm proud of. That because I didn't do it, it's Kathy that did it. And it's all her vision and all her ideas. and the locals, because they know best. We don't go in and say you need this, that, and the other. We always consult with the locals, and they know and Kathy, they know the way the culture and the way politics works over there, and what's needed in terms of community development. But like we got one well, and we sang several more, and we haven't given a bag of food out since. So which that's a success in itself.
Completely. Like, I suppose from your own, as we listen to you there describing some of those projects and thinking of the sheer impact of the size of some of the projects as well. This is not a I suppose you say it's getting the money and drill down and you get it, but like types of like the sports centre, like big multi-scale projects, from your perspective who've graduated as a physiotherapist, right? Been involved in some of those projects, empowering them to happen. Where does that skill set come out of within you, or the confidence even to take on stuff like that and do it? Do you get me? So sometimes people come out and I can't do that. I've never done that before. I won't do that. And it's a thing I feel passionate about, and trying to encourage people to try something different or try something new. I'm not saying everything ends up at that scale, but you get the basic premise that I'm at, and actually getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and saying I'm going to try and do something different. And I would just be curious to know where you feel that if confidence or drive, whatever word you choose or you see as the better fit, where that came from and what helped you do it.
I think I just went with it. And sometimes you just
got to go
with it, and whatever happens, and you take the chance. Take the first step, and then you never know where it'll lead you. And that's why I say to a lot of people, just take that first step, and who knows where you'll end up. Yeah. But the key thing was I got a lot of good people around me, and we got a great board, and then I got great supporters and great volunteers, and you're always willing to learn. Always go and meet people who have done it and learn from them, because you're always learning. And and the cause was too big. The emotion was too strong. I had to do it, no matter how. I was like, when, I think I always refer back to Viktor Frankl, and he says, what's his great statement? He who has a why can overcome any how. So the why was so strong. Those people needed help. The kids needed help. I couldn't forget about it, and the why was too strong. And I'd figure out the why, the how we're going to do it as I went along. But we got great people in as well, and great support, and the GA helped massively. And having
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, that helped. Look at the GA, like the Crow Park were amazing to us as well. We were Camp Charity of the Year one year. They opened up the pitches for us twice. We raised it directly from Crow Park alone. We got 50k was from the Charity of the Year, and then we raised 200k in each of those matches. So $250,000 just directly from Crow Park alone,
which is huge,
which is massive.
Yeah.
And especially during the recession as well, because it was so hard to raise money for overseas. Yeah. Because all the focus turned inwardly towards Ireland in terms of Pieta House, in terms of mental illness became massive, homelessness became massive, people suffering from huge debt became massive. All the charities HC budgets were slashed, so then the corporates and the philanthropists had to step in. So we found it very difficult to get funding during those, but we managed. We had to become very creative and very innovative in terms of our fundraising and how we did it. But it was a long slog during those years. But again, the why was strong enough, I think, and so I hope that answers the question.
No, it does. It absolutely does. And you referenced the sort of the collective power of the GAA in terms of being able to tap into a network where you can, if it's people and getting the right people together. But I suppose I'd be interested as well in terms of the individual experience of coming from a background of being successful, having achieved certain things. Those on the field lessons, I suppose, do you feel as if they're able to be transmitted across into the everyday life, and when channeled in the right way can have a strong impact? I suppose getting at that relationship between life and sport, really.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think most people would. You have that commitment, you have that drive. To be on a county panel, you have to have ambition, you have to have discipline. And I suppose I took on a lot, and it's probably, the charity probably did affect my game. Again, I got dropped from the county panel because of it in 2008, because, I always had probably too much on.
Yeah.
It was a big fault of mine, I suppose, that I always probably took on a little bit too much, be it hurling football at one time, and then I was hurling football and the physio and the charity because, it probably did impact on my game in the later years, and cost me 3 or 4 years of my inter-county career. And one manager did tell me, if I was to come back in the panel, I'd have to give up the charity. But he didn't realise it was my full-time job at the time. He thought I was doing it part-time still.
I know, because we all get caught up in it, like in terms of playing and passion and giving it everything. But that's some statement to come out with as well. Like,
but that was the perception, I suppose. You know, that this was, I had more commitment to this than the game. And it probably was false.
It was your job.
Yeah, it was probably false. But I was told that.
Yeah.
So I suppose that was their perception. And it's amazing perception.
It's a funny one, isn't it?
Can get out there and can be totally, you know. But anyway, and I suppose, you know, maybe.
Is there any hint of regret around that for you?
No. Though maybe the one regret would be that I suppose I never really focused on one thing, one game at a time, and maybe I'm just thinking foolishly here, but maybe I didn't reach the heights I could have in terms of hurling, or because I was always distracted by the football or the charity or other stuff. I always had to be doing something else, be it soccer or golf or, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe that's just my character, my characteristics. But no regret, Jeannie Mac. When you see the lives we saved,
what you've talked through there.
No, you couldn't. That's you know, it's a game at the end of the day as well. And this is life, and there's no bigger gain in the games of life.
No.
I presume. I suppose.
It leads me on perfectly to this. I know I have a few notes here in front of me. I'm starting to wonder if you're reading them, but I know you. In 2011, after being out of the setup, you go back in with the Galway hurlers after the success of Clarenbridge. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I was reading. There was an interview you did. I can't remember where it was, but I lifted a quote out of it because you just referenced the game of life there, and so I'll just read it out. But in an interview, they said, when you witness death, you come back to play sport and realise this has to be enjoyed. The fear of playing bad has to go. If you have that fear, you will inevitably play poorly anyway. I suppose, going back in 2011, are you playing sport from a different place there from you when you go back in at it?
Yeah, you are. And I think in 2011 in particular, Micheál Donoghue was our manager as well. And he demanded far more of us as leaders. He demanded we set our own standards. And then we, as a team, rather than internally, we need to drive each other on rather than the manager driving each other on. And we need to take ownership of our own responsibilities.
So that was obviously quite a culture shift within.
Massive culture shift.
Yeah.
We had won in 2001 and we hadn't won anything since then. And I know we did great Portumna teams were there and the great Athenry teams and Sarsfield teams. So there was dynasties there that were massive teams in Galway hurling. But we still never fulfilled our potential. You know, we didn't really fulfill it. But he changed that around in terms of demanding more from us. But as well, I remember I was in India actually. I brought a group to India in an ashram yoga meditation trip over to India, and there's this guy, a guru, you could call him. I know him well. And we were there for 3 weeks. And I was just asking about visualization and spontaneity and blah, blah, blah. And he was saying, you know, you should play the game for the enjoyment of others as well, not just for yourself. And he was trying to say you should play the game, express yourself, show off what you can do, and try to bring smiles to other people's faces. So instead of worrying about my own winning or my own losing or my own performance, I decided to try and look at bring huge joy to the community or my family or the sick people in the village and play for them rather than myself. And in that way, then you get a sense of freedom. You just express yourself. You just go.
Liberating.
And probably my best year from club. Yeah, you know, I had a really good year with the club, and I combined with Micheál's, you know, no acceptance of mediocrity, combined with this new mindset, I suppose, of, you know, not playing for myself but playing for others, and, you know, a sense of responsibility, and it's the joy we could bring others.
Yeah.
And that freed me up just to play with freedom and enjoy it way more, and not think about awards or think about honours or medals or whatever, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, it's a topic I find really interesting just from my own experiences. We're hearing more and more people talk about that now. I think particularly a lot of the younger players that come in, not just our games, just across the board, can get bogged down in the pressure aspect of it, the systems based. If it's systems based performance, and there's lots of different aspects to sport now the way it is. But when in the middle of all that, I certainly feel, and I'm just curious how you feel about it, is that there certainly needs to be made a little bit more room for that creative aspect, that expression, that joy. Because I think it's something that I'm talking for me, from my opinion, but isn't that what, for me anyway, isn't that what sport is meant to be? A place where you go and express yourself, and if you have something else going on, you can't escape from it a while, but also, as you said, bring joy to friends, bring joy to family, and and have fun.
Yeah, so I think, and you always play better when you enjoy yourself and have fun and you play instinctively. Anytime I thought, right, I'm going to be there, here, there, everywhere, I got caught up in paralysis by analysis and just everyone, if you ask anyone to recall their best games, they always say, I wasn't thinking. So you have to try, and I know you need systems now and structures, but if you can incorporate both, where you know your system so instinctively, then you just go and play it rather than being over analytical. But you need to bring fun back into it. You need to bring enjoyment back into it, or be unsustainable. Anyway, the careers are getting a lot shorter now as well because of the huge demand on them, and I suppose the huge toll mentally as well, and the huge sacrifice they have to make. It's got a whole another level, you know.
And having been able to go back in 2011 and play that year, I suppose the reality with time of anything is you then have to start facing up the transition out of the game. How was that particular journey over for you? Because like what we've talked about over the last 45 minutes or so, I think there's been lots of spikes, ups and downs, priorities, doing both, doing one, charity, stepping away, work. So it's been very, so spiky is the phrase that's in my head. But then to actually go back in from that place, from that quote that I read out, to actually then have to go, actually I've got to start transitioning out of this again. How was that for you?
I suppose I never really thought about it because there's always so much going on to fill the void of sports in terms of Africa, and I suppose I got to a sense of perspective in my travels to Africa and India and these places and the different things I was on and doing. That acceptance is the key word. I think you need to say I was lucky enough to have a great career, or to have a reasonably successful career, and I had loads of passions to fill my void. Be it golf, I had a huge passion for golf. To go really low, I had a huge passion for the charity, and a huge passion for travel, and a huge passion for leadership development and doing other things. So I viewed it maybe as an opportunity to do other things as well. Yeah. Even though I probably look back and regret on some things, whether I didn't win that All-Ireland medal. But to get back to your original question, I definitely went back in with a great sense of freedom and enjoyment. And I suppose I'd already transitioned out of the game at that stage one, so I kind of knew what it was like. And it is tough the year after, even the year after they got the All-Ireland final and in 2012, and they were very close. And while you're delighted with them, it is very tough to sit there and watch it when you've been there for 15 years. And not, as I said in the very start, not having reached the Holy Grail.
Yeah, you mentioned, I suppose, around that, if it's in terms of balance, and I think you've been quite open there now, you probably had too much going on at times, and balance could have been too far maybe gone the other way. Yeah. I think a lot of other players, particularly, I think during particularly those beginning years of the career, if you go back to, say, when you were talking about playing for both, is that you can let your life be consumed by just the sport and aspect too. I suppose from the position you're in now, with the perspectives that you have and having been able to travel and play and do all the work you've done, how important do you feel it is for players to find that balance? And I suppose just to contextualise that for you, is that I suppose everyone's balance is different anyway, and it's not so what worked for you wouldn't work for me, and what worked for me wouldn't work for someone else. But how important do you feel it is for a player to try and find that stable space for them to thrive in? Like,
most vital. And we know from our work with the GPA that when your off-field stuff is in good shape, your on-field stuff is in good shape. And sometimes my off-field stuff was probably too chaotic, with too much going on, so my on-field stuff suffered. Or even relationship stuff, if they're going wrong off-field, it transfers onto your on-field stuff. Or if you're stuck in a job you hate, that does transfer onto your on-field stuff, because you're rotting away there in stale and negative energy and negative space. And it's scientifically proven in research that if your off-field stuff is balanced and in a good place and you're fulfilled off the field, your on-field performance will be increased by 20%. So that's vital. And that also helps you transition out of sport, that you have other interests. Now, I know you have to be really focused, and that's probably one thing I didn't have. I had too much things going on. I didn't really focus on my game to get the maximum out of your career. But I think you just need a little bit you definitely need to balance off the field as well, and to have those passions ticking to a certain level, so that you can transition and have something to fill that space, because it is a massive void when you do these. And the buzz of playing in Croke Park last week, or in front of 80,000 people, and the buzz of being centre of attention, and the buzz of being, of just performing at the highest level, and the training at that level and being involved in elite sport is just huge. And everyone wants to be there. But it's hard to match that. But you have to try, and you have to find other passions and reconnect with, who other sides of you that gives you a bit of purpose.
Yeah, like, I suppose you mentioned, you referenced the GPA directly there, and I suppose in terms of this podcast series that I'm doing, having 10 conversations with 10 different individuals. So for a lot of the guys, the former players, the GPA as it is now wouldn't have been around, particularly, especially at the earlier days of your playing career. But I suppose from the position you're in now, so this series has been produced to go along with the former players event, which is happening in Croke Park on September 16th of this year. I suppose if we could give you a question to be directed specifically for former players, what would you say to sort of any former players that are listening that maybe don't know anything about what the GPA services are? What would you say to them in terms of the availability of them and the power of them?
Oh, they're massive, I suppose personally I've experienced the power of it and the excellent service providers they use. In 2015 we were struggling badly with just burnout from the charity, and I was getting married and hoping to have a family, and I went to them. I said, look, I'm struggling here in terms, I'm just exhausted, and in terms of financial sustainability for myself and all that as well. So they said, why don't you have a few life coaching sessions and see where you want to go, and have a think back, just take a step back, because I was consumed by it. And then that led me to merging up, meeting the life coach and working through a great, unbelievable individual, and partnering with Gorta South Africa. And that took an awful lot of load off, an awful emotional load off me, responsibility in terms of the back office stuff. And now the projects are sustainable and in a great organisation.
Yes.
And if anything happens to me, my partners
show
and the
goes on.
Show goes on. And plus, I can transition out a little bit out of it. I love bringing people to Africa on our leadership programs. And other companies were asking me, would I do this on a corporate level in Ireland and other places? But I needed to upskill myself. So, they helped me to go to the IMI to do executive coaching. And 2 years ago, 20 months ago, our little boy was born, Ruan. And unfortunately, for the first 5 months of his life, he was critically ill. So we spent 3 months in Temple Street and life-saving surgery in Manchester on his pancreas. But the GPA were brilliant to me, my family, and my wife during that period where they offered us counselling.
Yeah.
And that was brilliant, just to talk to somebody to get through that, because I was a first-time parent, major change in itself, but then to have to spend the first 5 months not knowing what's going to happen.
Yeah. And there's no preparation for that.
And there's no preparation for that. The service that they provided was brilliant, and I needed that. And so that's another service that was so good to me. And so I would tell any inter-county player, any office stuff they're struggling with, be it relationships, family, illness, career advice, career crossroads, anything. And I came into the GPA and asked for help and just advice on the charity and how I was getting burnt out, and I ended up joining South Africa, doing executive coaching, formed the Inner Winner Institute, and also, little did I know, giving me emotional support during one of the toughest periods of my life in terms of the illness of my little boy. So, that's amazing support.
It's incredible, yeah.
So it's there. And people just have to ask. And again, it's just taking that first step, and it's taking that bravery. It's courage to ask for help. And it's just a matter of reaching out, and who knows where it'll take you. As I say to people, one particular player came in and asked for help about setting up a business in a totally out of the box situation, and he ends up in New York. Because of the connection and support the GPA can provide. It's
amazing. I suppose, first of all, just thank you for that, for your personal testament there. I know it's very personal to you, and it's your journey. And I think you've really nicely captured the sort of the support that you felt, and I suppose more importantly than support is the benefit of it. And I think just as I was listening to you talking there, the thing that kept going through the back of my mind was just the power of having one conversation sometimes, and how it snowballs into another thing or bounces onto someone else, or you get in touch with someone else, and how actually just talking about whatever it is that's on your mind, whatever stress it is, in whatever way, shape or form, and it will be different for everybody because we all have loads of different things going on, but actually just having that first conversation and, as you said, taking that first step it's a really strong life lesson, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And I think, I don't know the quote, but it's all about just fear and it's just taking the jump.
Yeah.
And fear is the biggest crippler of all. Fear of being judged, fear of what people think of you. Failure. Who gives a shit? Nobody cares about it. Nobody gives a damn. So why don't you just take the step in? And the big thing, and I know I've spoken here openly, but the big thing about the GPA and what they offer is totally confidential. Nobody knows, unless you want them to know.
Exactly.
Not even your teammate or your work colleague or
the manager,
the staff. I do some work with the GPA now in terms of promoting the programs in the squads in Connacht and Clare hurlers and Donegal footballers. But I don't even know who I go out and promote the programs, talk to players, but I don't know if they take them up or not unless they want me to know. And several players have taken up programs that I hadn't a clue they had gone through until they told me afterwards of the benefit it had been to them.
That sense of wanting to help other people, I suppose help themselves, and for the want of a better phrase, is obviously something that you're passionate about. And I know you specifically referenced the Inner Institute there from yourself. So I suppose for anyone that's listening that doesn't have an understanding of that or not sure what that is, how would you describe that? I suppose where that project come from and why? You referenced the importance of the why earlier on. Is why do you do it?
Yeah, I suppose the Inner Institute it came from. We used to bring people to Africa on a leadership program because I wanted to give people the experience that I got during my 3 months, a sense of what are your real values. And when you go to Africa, it's raw, it's natural, it's spiritual. Something with that red sand that just grounds you back down to earth. You have 10 days out there, then have uninterrupted time and space, no phone, no email. And then you're immersed in with the kids in the orphanage or the school or the soccer team or the home for disabled children. And they just blow you away in terms of their unbreakable human spirit and how they smile and dance through life and through the troubles. And in that space then, it's a really powerful place to be, to actually ask the big questions. What am I doing? Am I doing what I want to do? And if not, why not? How do I get there? And in that space, you're far more open to dig deep and reflect. And we then do workshops. So you have workshops combined with immersion into the projects. And it's a very powerful combination with huge results and a lot of corporates have sent people on it. So when I transitioned into Self-Help Africa, a lot of people were asking me to do it in Ireland and do it on a commercial basis and do it a training in Ireland and India and
so
other
just applying
places.
the same principles.
Applying the same principles. So we bring people to really powerful places and we connect them to really powerful people. And that combination then, and we're big into experiential learning and immersive learning, where we bring you away for 5 or 10 days in a really transformational kind of power place and connected in with people who walk the walk, like Cathy's or like the Jerry Duffys or like people who are really authentic and walk the walk. And then we learn by doing. We teach people our tools and techniques for performance, for stress, and then they must practice them in real life events that we create on the program. So when you experience the benefits of them firsthand, you're far more likely then to integrate them into your daily routine. So it's based on that basically, and really powerful programs.
Just through what those lessons that you were talking about there, I suppose one of the big things that was jumping out to me, and correct me if I'm interpreting this in the wrong way, is that a lot of it is around self-awareness and connecting with yourself. And I know particularly, well, I'm still youngish, but that's definitely as a younger man, that was a thing I probably actively avoided doing. Was actually, what am I about? What am I doing? Where am I going? I suppose, what do you think scares people off taking that really strong look in the mirror? Not the look in the mirror to fix your hair, like the actual, what am I doing? Where am I going? What is my purpose? So for me, I got it through. It was a counselling experience, and that was obviously very. I suppose I see it as start at the bottom of a hill or a mountain and climb up it. But I suppose it can be done in lots of other ways of just actually resetting, refocusing. It can be done through exactly what you've described there in the Inner Institute. It can be done by going on a college course for coaching. But what do you think, from your experience or from your own opinion, what do you think scares people off actually being willing to do that?
Fear.
Yeah.
Fear what they'll find and fear what decisions they'll have to make then. Because they might have to make some big decisions.
Yeah.
And nobody likes change or challenge themselves. They like the comfort, status quo. That's what I think.
There you have it, folks. That's episode 13 of the Real Talks podcast, and what a powerful conversation it was. From one Alan to another, I just like to express a very sincere thank you to this GA legend for his honesty and insight throughout our discussion. He's someone that just oozes authenticity, compassion and leadership, and I hope you learned as much from him as I did. I should also say that during our chat, Alan mentioned his son was unwell for a period, but I'm delighted to say he's now well and in full health. As I wind up the show for this week, I think it's really important that we take a second to highlight just how powerful an impact many of our playing heroes are having on society both in Ireland and much further afield. We're so lucky to have these brilliant characters in our games, and I think it's unreal how Alan is using his life lessons and experiences to inspire others. If you'd like to learn more about his Inner Winner Institute, go to innerwinnerinstitute.com. That's innerwinnerinstitute.com. Don't forget, if you want to check in on previous episodes with the likes of Kevin McMenamin, Brendan Maher, Jamie Clark, Cora Staunton, Eamon McGee and many others, you can just go to realtalks.ie. That's realtalks.ie. My name is Alan O'Mara, and you've been listening to episode 13 of the Real Talks podcast.